The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you on March 21st, 2023. How you guys doing? A little down today. Sort of right now. Not today, maybe it's just right now. Feeling a little discouraged. I've been kind of feeling that way the last couple of days. As you guys know, I've been going through this health journey, getting better health, and, in addition to my neck issue, which is obviously getting better, and, obviously I admitted a couple weeks ago on the show that I'm diabetic officially, and I'm working on that, and things are turning around. I actually posted my lowest blood sugar count today. I think it was like 113? I think it was. I penciled it today. Lowest I've had since tracking this thing. But discouraged because, as I told you, in addition to my being diabetic, I also have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So while the blood glucose has been on the up and up in terms of like positive, like a good thing, like it's been lowering, but also positive and a good thing. I take my blood pressure every day, and I take always take numbers, just when I start my day, and then when I end my day, and I can't seem to get a grip on it. Like it's still high. And I feel discouraged, about it because with all this going on, and I'm obsessing now about ways to eat better, have a better regiment, and also ways of just being better and just doing better things and making better decisions and mental health and all those things play a factor in that, especially too, because it's not just diet when it comes to, especially when it comes to blood pressure. It ain't just diet. It's the one thing I'm starting to learn that of all the three things I'm working on now, it's probably the hardest one I can control. I can't control, or to get under control, for that matter. And I got discouraged on Sunday. Thankfully my dad called me, and my dad and I had a good conversation because he's been dealing with this himself for the last couple of years. I think the last 6 years he actually was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and that the number to get it down to where it needs to be, 120 or 80 or 130 or 90, it's a challenge. And I'm nowhere close to that now. I'm nowhere close to that at this point. Like I think the last one I posted was like 150 something over 110. And I'm on medication for now too. On top of that, I'm on medication for the diabetes. I'm on medication for high blood pressure and for cholesterol. My goal is to at least by the end of this year, if not sooner, be off medication for at least diabetes and the cholesterol. I do know, with the high blood pressure, it is genetic. My dad has it. My mom, I think, also has it as well too. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play. So my wife and I were talking about this. She was saying that, you may have to be on medication for this for the rest of your life because of not just, even if you get it under control with your diet, it's one of those things where it's a lot harder to realize because of we're working against genetics, working against other things and other factors. Stress levels also plays a part in that too. I stress for a lot of things in the household, whether it's finances or my kids or the marriage or other things of that nature. And no matter how much things you try to do to keep things stress-free and easy going, when you have other elements that you can't control, it's harder. It's so much harder. And you can't really equate for that. You got to bake that into the reasons why this is happening. So I've been a little discouraged with that. Like the blood sugar thing's been good. I've been getting lower scores on that, which is good. Which I'm within range where I need to be with my sugar. Cholesterol, I'm sure we'll get that under control at some point. My goal is to have my A1C level when I go back in about another 2.5 months to do my more blood work. My goal is to have my my A1C levels be much lower than it was when I posted about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, that thing was sky high. My A1C level was 11%. You gotta be between 6 5. Let's say the normal is 6%. And I was like off the charts. So thank God I'm trying to get this under control now. But other than that, that's been one of the things that's been discouraging with this whole process is that. And like I said, everything is all positive. I'm still positive about things going forward. But like, I got to be real also on things that, if there are things that are bothering me and things that are discouraging, I'm going to be truthful about it too on this podcast. Like I said, I want to, I told you guys that, one of my goals here was to build a community with this. Show you guys that, health is important, and I'm going through. I've never really taken my health serious in this way ever. Because I never felt the need. Never felt I needed to. Growing up, and I always had the kind of the attitude, like as I said, of ignorance is bliss, and live and let live, whatever. And I'm young enough, and I'll turn around. And I used to go to the gym a lot, and but now I'm at a point now where if I'm not careful, I could kill myself. But so that's the discouraging thing I want to get out there. I want to make sure I be honest with you guys and let you guys know that. Yes, we're working on doing better here and working on the temple and working on getting things in order, but there is still things that discourage me. I also feel like a failure sometimes as a dad. Like I'm, even right now, my oldest son and I are, we have an off and on relationship in terms of like we're always around. I'm always there for him. So it's not one of those situations where I'm not there for my kids. But it's very contentious at times because he's getting older. He's turning 10 next month, and him and I are very alike. And I a lot of times when you deal with a situation like that where your sibling, or not sibling, your child and yourself, or it's like almost like seeing a mirror in a sense. Like I look at him like I see myself in all the ways. And sometimes I hate that because I see the person I used to be, or the person I probably still am, and he's very vocal about how he feels. The difference. I always said the difference between him and I growing up is that where I was very quiet and always kept things in, he is not that way. He is very vocal. He's very honest and upfront about how he feels, which I appreciate in a lot of ways, but sometimes it does challenge me because now is he too vocal to where he has too much room to be sometimes disrespectful or, not respectful of the process or of what the rules are in the house. These are things I struggle with sometimes. And we sometimes we butt heads a lot. Just being honest, we butt heads, and I feel like as he gets older, we're gonna have a very challenging relationship in that way because we are very alike in that way. But it could bond us too at the same time, because on some hands we're very close. Both love wrestling. We both love to work out. We love our passion now of him skating and walking with me every day. We're still doing. But sometimes it can be at a situation where he's very stubborn about certain things, as am I. But I'm the man in the house, so sometimes I have to lay the law down. And I got to be serious, EJ, at times. I know it's hard to imagine me being very serious, but I can be, especially because of my children. And at times I feel like I'm a failure as a dad, which I shouldn't feel that way because they're still healthy. They're still good kids. My family members love them. My friends love them. They always say they're very good kids. They're special kids. They are, but at the same time, it's like, it all falls on you as a parent. It all reflects on you as a parent. So I just want to get honest with you guys on this, about that. Feeling a little down today about that, but like I said, it's another day. I want to go. I haven't done a podcast in over a week. I actually just dropped earlier today on this feed, actually, a unfiltered episode People will say, "Why you dropped on this feed as opposed to the other feed?" I don't know. I just kind of felt like doing. I felt like putting it on this feed because I get, obviously I have the other feed still, but I get more. It's clear that even in a few months, I've had that feed. I do get much larger numbers on this feed than that one. So maybe I make a decision again whether or not to keep that one or not. I don't know. I had my reasons to doing that feed was it was supposed to be that feed was strictly for content that were topic centric and timely, but I don't know. I haven't kept up with that feed in 2 months, and and I just do that quick 10-minute thing on Cam Newton on the feed, and hey, But anyway, that's out of the way. Title this episode ADHD because, and it's kind of it kind of links to what I'm talking about here about the podcast and stuff. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I say how my son and I very alike. My oldest son and I very alike. That's one of the things we're also very alike about. He has ADHD. He's diagnosed with that. I was diagnosed with ADD as a child. The age didn't come into fact. The hyperactivity thing didn't become a thing until way past the time I was diagnosed. So I'm probably ADHD as well. In fact, I would definitely dare say I am ADHD. And it's funny. ADHD is it's benefited my life and it's also hurt my life in a lot of ways. It's been a negative and a positive. ADHD for me on the positive end it's always kept my creativity flowing. It's why I stay motivated doing podcasts. It's why I stay motivated doing other things. I love the process of things. The ADHD keeps me, keeps the train rolling on that end. At the same time, and I probably harp on this more than I should, but I do, so I'm going to talk about it here. The ADHD has also been a negative for me in a lot of ways. It's had me having sleepless nights. My brain won't slow down sometimes at times. I have, you've seen through the 12 years of doing this podcast, I've gone in and out of ideas and different stages and different things of the show and how to tweak this show here and there. And then I don't tweak anymore and I untweak it and untweak it again. And, whether or not I keep a feed and don't keep a feed, all those things. That's all tied to ADHD. Because I'm so hyperactive and so always trying to figure out the next thing. And I don't take a medication for that. I told you guys that before. It's only until recently I started taking meds on, obviously, diabetes and for, health stuff. I hate taking meds. I hated taking allergy meds out loud. I hated it. But I feel like if I did take meds for that back in the day, I think was it Ritalin back in the day? You used to take that. I know. I think my brother-in-law had that at one point. ADHD. I think he has that still. I know my sister has it definitely. She told me that. But it's been a challenge for me sometimes because it does get in the way of resting my brain. Sometimes I hate that. And then when you add more things, to my life and compounds my life, it could be a complete drag. Like I said, everything in my life, it impacts my relationship with my wife and my kids. It impacts my work. It impacts the podcast. It impacts my health, food, you name it. It's probably the next thing I probably need to attack and try to get under control. Wow, we're 50 minutes in this podcast, and I'm here confessing things, personal things on this podcast. But this is what it's for. It's a therapy. I mean, this podcast has been a positive for it too, because it's been one thing where, for a long time I had music when I was in a band, and I would write music and I would, perform with my band, and that was always something I had to, kind of use as an avenue to vent and to, get my ADHD in control. And even then, sometimes I would feel I had to tweak things and for no reason at all. But I don't know. I'm yawning. I'm tired. I shouldn't be doing this podcast tonight, but I was supposed to do I was supposed to record tonight with Kyle Nash and Big Jim James Neese. First time we would have recorded together on this show since last July, I think, actually. But things had to get rescheduled. Unfortunately, Kyle has a sick kid. I could relate to that. Obviously, Big Jim not feeling well in general. Headache, he said. But I totally respect. Obviously, I mean, like I said, this is not going anywhere. And in fact, a lot of the topics we're talking about on the show are very evergreen anyway. So we'll get to that probably next week. But I'm kind of glad I'm actually recording this now here, because it's therapy. Like I said, wife's not home tonight; she's working a long day tonight. So, but that's ADHD. It's something I've never really spoke about this on the show ever. I think I spoke about it ever on the show, and but yeah, it feels debilitating at times. It's having this. I don't know. It's confession hour in an Earnest Speaking podcast, huh? All right, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers now intends to go to New York Jets, although that trade is not official yet. Let's just say if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, let's hypothetically say that trade is done, which I believe it will happen. I think it will happen for the draft, because they're still working on the parameters of their trade, and obviously how that's gonna what compensation they're gonna give up to get him and all that. I know some people say the Packers are gonna try to swindle the first round pick out of the Jets, which is number 13 this year. Personally, I think go ahead if it comes out of that. The 13th pick in the draft, who gives a shit? Aaron Rodgers is more important and is better than the 13th pick in the draft right now in 1 year sample. Come on, you literally wasted your number 2 pick on Zach Wilson. He sucks, okay? And you're going this route because Zach Wilson sucks. So you can give him the 13th pick in the draft because you get the second pick in the first round two years ago for this kid, and he's not good. Aaron Rodgers makes the Jets viable. I'm not sure that they're going to win the division. I'm not sure if they're going to win the conference. I ain't sure if they go win the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, however, makes the Jets a playoff team. Like, if I'm picking 7 teams to go to the playoffs next year in the AFC, with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, with the roster they have right now currently, and as long as they don't gut the roster after this trade, which I don't see happening, this is a playoff team. I think the Dolphins are the most well-rounded team in the division, honestly, even more than Buffalo. But they have question marks with their quarterback himself and Tua Tagovailoa. The Bills are kind of like in a holding pattern because they're still really, really good. They're still a Super Bowl contender. But I can't say they got better this offseason. In fact, I would argue they're either the same or worse, which is not really that good, because if you're the same or worse, you're not as good as Cincinnati or Kansas City, for that matter. Miami's right on your heels. The Jets now on your heels. Both these teams in the division beat you once last year. And the Dolphins should be honest with you, Dolphins could beat you guys all 3 times. So, Aaron Rodgers makes the Jets viable, a playoff team, a contender. I'll put him in a Super Bowl contention. Because I think Aaron Rodgers still right now, at least for another year or so, maybe 2, depends on how he feels. Just on his own talent alone, this on how good he is as a player. He's still a top 6, 7 quarterback in the league in 1 year. I'll take him in 1 year, absolutely. I also think the Packers doing the right thing, though. I also think the Packers doing the right thing, because you have to know where you stand with Jordan Love. You have to know if this guy is worth it going forward. I think this is last year on a contract before he can sign an extension, or he can walk. Obviously, you have to know where you stand with Jordan Love. And I think the Packers, I mean, we were all speculating this even before this thing happened. We got the feeling that the Packers wanted to get off of Aaron Rodgers. I think 2 years ago that wasn't the case because Jordan Love wasn't that good. We saw a little bit of him, and he was not what we thought he was going to be. Plus, Aaron Rodgers has two MVP seasons in a row. But at some point, when you're 39 years old, despite the MVPs, playoff failure after playoff failure, and then last year you don't even make the playoffs. You lose week 17 or week 18 in a game you winning into the playoffs against the Detroit Lions at home. You might as well just see what you have in this kid. You might as well see. So they made the right choice here. They made the right choice. 2 years ago, a year ago, would have said no. Right out with Rodgers, most talented quarterback in the league, most talented quarterback in the history of the league, probably, other than Pat Mahomes. But now, no. Now it's the time. And in hindsight, honestly, they probably should have got off Aaron Rodgers even a year or two ago, and probably got more assets for him in the process. But that being said, he helps the Jets. The Jets are desperate. The Jets haven't won a Super Bowl since 1969 or 68. What year it was? Super Bowl III. That's how long it's been. I wasn't even born. My mom was 10 years old when I won a Super Bowl. Last one, Super Bowl. That's how long ago it's been. And she's now 60-something years old. Early 60s. Sorry, Mom. I didn't even put it out there. I'm sorry, Mom. You're 29 years old. For like the 30th time. But, yeah. The Jets need a quarterback. And I think both teams win here on this. The only risk here for the Jets is Aaron Rodgers year of the year? That's the only risk here. Is he year to year? Is he committed? Is he committed for at least 2-3 years? You know, if this was Tom Brady mindset, you feeling good about this because Tom Brady wanted to play into his 40s. Tom Brady was obsessed with football. You can't say the same about Rodgers. Rodgers has already threatened to retire a couple times. I mean, hell, he threatened to retire just last month. He was actually, in his own words, he said he was 90% retired and then 10% returning, going into his darkness retreat. Then he came back and that changed. So the fact that he's already considered retiring once already, you know, should at least give the Jets some pause. But still worth the risk, even for 1 year. No, Tom Brady didn't ever threaten to retire at that point in his life. So, just saying. But we'll see. Hope this trade gets down soon. I think personally it'll be done before the draft because both teams need to get this done so they can move on. That simple. Ring culture. Listen to an interview with for the record, JJ Redick has done some great things in media since retiring. He had on Damian Lillard on his podcast this last week rather, and they were talking about ring culture and about the identity of players, star players, not wanting to or not winning titles, if you will. I'm gonna play this little clip, 2-minute clip from his show, the third man in three. I can't remember the name of the show, but it's JJ Redick's podcast. And his literally talk about ring culture, but we'll react to what he said here.
The NBA I play in now is not the NBA that I came into, and I expect it to evolve. Everything is constantly changing, but I feel like I play for the love of the game. Like I want the competition. I want to know what it feels like to win. I want to see my teammates do well. I want to see my teammates get paid. You know, like that don't count. Regular season don't count. Get a ring. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy's the MVP. This guy did this. He the first. It's like, bro, what is this stuff? Like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, they was asking me about Dame, but like to win a ring. And I'm like, bro, I don't need to prove to y'all that I want to win a ring. Why the hell do I play? Like, we cannot keep acting like, while I understand we play to win championships, we all want to win a championship. We can't keep acting like nothing matters. Like the rest of the stuff, the journey doesn't matter. We can't keep doing that. I think about it all the time where I'm like, man, I don't know if I can just play a long, long time because I don't enjoy what the NBA as a whole is becoming.
Regardless of what you decide to do, by the way, you're going to be criticized for it. I can give you multiple examples off the top of my head where someone couldn't win a ring and they go team up with another superstar, and when they win it, it gets discredited. So the discourse
or they go and don't win it.
Yeah.
And now they look crazy.
Yeah.
And now they talk worse.
You've had some quotes about that as well. And I always look, how do you maintain a level of sanity within this discourse?
I have a life that's stable and is not based upon who I am as an NBA player. Like, I don't sit here and just think about I need to leave all the time. And I'm not sitting there watching TV and hearing everything they got to say. Like, oh, I probably should do this or I probably should do that. I'm like, when my career is over, y'all are not about to be talking about me.
JJ put this really well.
Dame Lillard, point guard of the Portland Trailblazers. Going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Should be, no matter what how you slice it. And this is interesting here because he's one of those players who has won a title. He's gotten as far as the conference finals a couple years ago. And we talk about this all the time when it comes to barbershop arguments about, who's the greatest of all time, how many rings did this person have? Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, doesn't matter. And what he's saying is on point. It's on point. That he's not saying that titles don't matter, but it shouldn't be, rings shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of things. There's other things as a part of the journey. I think people don't appreciate just how hard it is to win titles. That's why I hate this culture of if you win a ring, you're the greatest. If you don't win it, you suck. Because that's where we're at now as sports fans. And I get it, it's part of the debate culture now. When we debate LeBron, Jordan, how many rings do you have? What's the ring count? There's a lot of great players in this league, in the NBA, for example. A lot of great players in this league that are won rings. That should be, and they're guys that could be argued top 10 guys, but they don't get top 10. They don't get top 10 discussion because they didn't win titles. And here's the thing: rings do matter. I'm not what Lillard. I agree there. I do think rings do matter. Rings should matter, but when you weigh the argument, it should weigh the argument, but it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all. Because if rings really is the be-all, end-all, then Michael Jordan's not the greatest of all time. That's Bill Russell. Bill Russell almost triples his number, doubled him up. Almost doubled him up. I should say, well, triple up, but he doubled. He has 11 rings. Jordan is 6. If rings are the only thing that matters, then Kareem should be ahead of Jordan, or at least on par with Jordan. He got 6 too, just for the record. Magic has 5. LeBron has 4. And then this is why a lot of players feel pressure to go elsewhere, because fans hate it. This is what sports fans are kind of responsible for this too, in some degree. We want the players to win the rings, but we also want the players to win the rings in the way you want them to. If rings matter so much, then you shouldn't get mad at Kevin Durant going to Golden State and win rings, because you told him that rings matter, and that's all that matters. So, if it's all that matters, then I got to get me a ring by any means necessary. And that's that way it should be. And I think what Lillard is saying as a whole, and I'm glad he was very precise on this, is that we can't forget the journey. Also, there are so many great players in this league, in the NFL, in the NBA. Dan Marino, to me, is still my top 5 list. Dan Marino does not have a Super Bowl ring. In fact, he's only been to 1 Super Bowl in his entire career. That was year number 2 in the NFL, 1984. Okay? In the NBA, you got guys like Charles Barkley. And I think some of you kids today won't understand how good Charles Barkley was on the court. Like, if you sit there, and obviously you see him on TNT, and he's fantastic broadcaster, analyst, you name it, entertaining, you name it. Charles Barkley was an all-time great player. The things he can do with a guy his size. He was listed 6'6". He was probably really 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", but was called a round amount rebound because he was a great rebounder for a guy his size and can move the way he did. Karl Malone, I mean, obviously you don't like Karl Malone's off-court stuff, but Karl Malone, one of the all-time greatest power forwards of all time. Now, third greatest scorer of all time. Just LeBron passed him, and, and Kareem, of course, number 2 now. John Stockton, Elgin Baylor, one of the greatest players of all time. Patrick Ewing. There's so many great players in this league that never won rings. And in the NFL, too. Barry Sanders is considered the greatest running back of all time. Never even sniffed a Super Bowl. Well, he got to the NFC title game one year in 91 with Detroit. But damn well they would be in that Washington team in 91. Come on now. So that's what Lillard's point. That's the point Lillard's trying to make here. Rings do matter. Titles do matter. But it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all when it comes to discussions about legacies. Yes, weigh into discussion points. But don't make it be the only thing that matters when it comes to analyzing players, legacies and whatnot. All right. We are about a week and a half away from WrestleMania. So, next couple of weeks on the show, I'll be upping a little bit of wrestling content on this feed. I know I'm planning to do the WrestleMania preview pod next week or so. Look out for that. But I saw something that was trending on Twitter late last week, and I wanted to kind of turn into a topic on the show. And it's someone that posted on there about basically listing 8 wrestlers to know the person by. Basically, name 8 wrestlers in the history of the sport of pro wrestling that define your love for wrestling. And I thought this was kind of fun. So I initially had a list on there I put right away without much thought. Then I said, you know what? Let me rescind that because I want to put a little more thought into it. Because I've been watching wrestling since 1987. And there's been a lot of guys that have come and gone, different promotions, different eras. And there's a lot of guys I do enjoy. I enjoy now and I enjoy in yesteryear, and so the 8 wrestlers to know me by. If you are a person that sees the WWE or AEW or whatever promotion you see, and you meet me and you're saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in this wrestling thing, but I want to know what wrestlers that you're into wrestling, what wrestlers that you are into that you enjoy the most, whose work you enjoy the most of all time. Who are the 8 guys that you would recommend me check out? Okay, so the 8 guys that my favorite guys, and this is a lot harder to realize. The top 5 or 6 are easy, but the last one was actually a little harder. But I threw this guy in the hat because I really enjoy his matches. The 8 wrestlers know me by. Here we go. The first one, of course, everybody knows the answer to this one, especially my favorite wrestler of all time, Macho Man Randy Savage. You guys already know. Ooh, yeah, right there, Not only a great promo, not only a great promo, of course, also in-ring, one of the all-time greats, high flyer, total great story. You watch his classic matches against Steamboat in Mania 3, obviously Ric Flair in the Mania 8 and all that. By the way, I'm gonna do episode. I'm probably gonna do an unfiltered episode on this feed in the next week or two about my top 5 WrestleMania matches of all time. But Macho Man Randy Savage is my first one. Second one, Hulk Hogan. Say what you want about Hulk Hogan all time, about him in hindsight, but Hulk Hogan is the reason I got into wrestling in the first place. Hulk Hogan is the reason why I sustained wrestling beyond just the early years of Hulkamania. He brought me back into wrestling during the NWO, which also got me into the actual era for WWE eventually down the road. Hogan, I'm considered a Hogan disciple through the years. Followed him when he was good and bad. Stone Cold Steve Austin, my other one. Austin, this is easy, obviously. He took the promotion by storm in the late 90s. Pretty much saved his ass out of bankruptcy. Probably, I don't think it's probable. I think he's still the most popular wrestler in the history of pro wrestling today. Even 20-something years later, he is still the biggest name and probably gets the biggest pop in the history of the company. Look at WrestleMania last year. First match in 20 years. And it got a big pop. Every time he shows up at a show, he gets the biggest pop. That's simple. The Rock, obviously, is my fourth one. I prefer heel Rock over babyface Rock. The Hollywood Rock angle in the 03, why I didn't watch it in real time because I stopped watching at that point. It is, to me, his best work. Wish it did a lot longer. The Rock's the other one. My fifth one is Shawn Michaels, HBK. Someone I grew to love as I got older, because some of my favorite matches of all time. If I did a top 5 list right now, my favorite matches of all time, I guarantee at least 2 or 3 of those are Shawn Michaels matches. My favorite match of all time is actually him and Undertaker from Bad Blood in '97. He had the greatest matches of all time. He was so entertaining. By the way, his run in '97-'98, to me, one of the best runs, certainly the most enjoyable runs I've ever watched in wrestling history. My sixth one here, we lost him last year, actually a year ago last week, Scott Hall / Razor Ramon. Just smooth, great promo, entertaining, great in-ring wrestler, technical wrestler. Some of my favorite matches of all time. He was also involved with that too. Ladder match against Michaels in WrestleMania 10. So he's the only one, Scott Hall. My seventh one, it's probably shock some folks here, but follow along. Brock Lesnar. I love Brock Lesnar. I think Brock Lesnar is someone that, as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate even more. He goes away for a little while, comes back. I miss him. He comes back. Always fun. Cowboy Brock. I love his early run in 02 and 03. When he came back in 12. He was the right guy to end the streak also, for the record. He was the right guy for that. Because it made sense what they were doing with that storyline with him as dominant Lesnar. Made total sense. Probably my first or second favorite theme entrance in wrestling history. I love his entrance. Love Brock. The eighth one, final one here. This is tough because I had a couple of guys here I had on my list. I had Ravage McRoot on my list at one point for this one. I had Sting on this one point. A couple of guys. I had Bret Hart on my list at one point. I think Bret Hart's matches are fun to watch. Owen Hart's another guy I consider on this one as well too. I had to put Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig because his run between 89 and 90, especially into 91, especially as I look at it as an adult, amazing. One of the most amazing runs I've seen. He made the mid-card matter in a way that was perfect. No pun intended. Kurt Hennig, if his back didn't give out him in 91, and obviously kept wrestling beyond that, but that back injury was the start of, his decline. But some of the best matches I've seen in my life, if Hogan Ward doesn't go to Mania 6, there's a chance that Hogan and Perfect could have been a Mania 6 matchup. Who knows? Perfect at that point was probably the biggest heel in the company, not named Macho Man. Kurt Hennig was amazing. Love his matches. The match of him and Brett in SummerSlam 91 stands out for me. So, those are my eight guys to know me by. Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall, Brock Lesnar, and Mr. Perfect. All right, finally get out of here. Latest GOP presidential polling. Look, we're not even close to primary season yet. We still got months and months to go. Caucus doesn't start till next year, February. But we're already getting some data on things here. The GOP presidential polling. Who's going to challenge Joe Biden, which most likely Joe Biden will be running for the election next year. Donald Trump's ready to put his name in the hat. He's announced he's running late November. You got now Nikki Haley in the race. Other people are intending to join the race. Tim Scott, we obviously Ron DeSantis is someone that's supposed to be the only challenger, the real challenger to Donald Trump. Latest polls has Donald Trump starting to put distance between him and DeSantis. Now, let's be clear. Ron DeSantis has not declared to run for president yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But the polling as of late now too, and it's going to be interesting too because with this news about Donald Trump possibly getting arrested this week, today, tomorrow, whatever it may be, I expect him to get a bump in the polls as a result. So the latest polls, according to Quinnipiac University, has Donald Trump leading 46% in a hypothetical GOP primary field, with DeSantis receiving 32%. Again, DeSantis has not declared to run for president as yet, so let's be clear about that. There's also a new poll, I think also Quinnipiac as well, too, where in a head-to-head match between Trump and DeSantis, where Trump leads 51% to 40% for DeSantis. The polls were a lot closer back in November when DeSantis won the gubernatorial for re-election here in Florida. And there's a lot of people who were trying to figure out, because a lot of Trump-endorsed candidates did not win in a lot of national elections, Senate races and stuff and whatnot, governor races too as well. So there's a thought that maybe if that was the case, that maybe Trump might be on the way out, because there's people who don't want Trump to run, and they see that even if they like Trump's policies, that DeSantis is the more normal of the two. The numbers ain't the numbers right now ain't bearing out right now. Now, again, to be clear, Ron DeSantis has not entered the race yet. So until he does, I don't think it's something we should take this 100% accurate. But I do think even if he did enter the race, I do think Donald Trump will still be the favorite to win, and most likely will win the primary. Now, how this thing goes with the possible indictment, which he says himself he's going to get arrested on Tuesday. Well, it is Tuesday. I saw no report today he's going to get arrested tomorrow instead. Whatever. We'll see what happens. I do think Donald Trump is the favorite, but now that the polling is now actually favoring him even more as we get into now the spring of 2023. Again, a lot of time ahead of us. A lot of time ahead of us before we get into like actual, real, concrete data. Once, first off, we need DeSantis to enter the race first and foremost before we even go further into this discussion. But let's be real. I think Donald Trump has a stranglehold on the GOP. He has at very least, a quarter of the base that is diehard to him, that is loyal to him. Come on, Nikki Haley, really? No. Mike Pence? No. Tim Scott? Come on now. Who else? Was it the other guy, Vivek Ramadek? Come on, 1%? Come on, no. Michael Pompeo? No. Chris Christie? No. Ted Cruz? Not entering the race probably because he's smart, because he's not very popular, obviously. So Donald Trump is going to be the nominee for the Republican Party until further notice. It's that simple. I'm going to call off for you now. And even with the possible arrest happening with him, I think he has that party still cornered his way. So until then, Trump is still the face of the GOP until further notice. And on that note, that will do it here on this podcast, dated March 21st, 2023. I'm going to go get some rest now because I'm tired. But I'm glad I got to get this in because I need it. Need the therapy. I am on Twitter at EachPerson7. Earnestly podcast across all podcasters. Until then, we'll talk soon. Look out for I think I'm doing another podcast later this week. I'm doing a baseball. I think I'm doing a baseball preview pod this week. Look out for that. Until then, we'll talk soon. Later.